So in this video, you finally understand the root cause of procrastination no one talks about and how to overcome it. So firstly, it's crucial to understand that procrastination is usually unrelated to laziness and rarely has to do with the task being avoided. So in truth, procrastination happens because of the meaning we attach to certain tasks. And because of this hidden meaning, procrastination becomes a strategy to avoid something deeper. For instance, when I launched my book Pisces, Demystifying Human Psychology, about 6 months ago, there were a lot more people paying attention to me. And I remember feeling this resistance to keep posting my articles, recording videos, and telling my stories. And why? Well, because on the background, I noticed I was feeling afraid of being judged and felt like an imposter. So perfectionism was creeping in, which led to an over-identification with my productions and being attached to the outcome. And by the way, when you join my newsletter down below, I'll send you a copy of this book and also teach you about everything we will explore in this video more in depth. And another example is that when I was severely overweight, and this is like a decade ago, I remember constantly procrastinating on buying new clothes. And the reason is that I had to look myself in the mirror and face the fact that I wasn't taking good care of myself. So having to buy new clothes was a direct confrontation that I was getting fat and I was doing nothing about it. So that's why procrastination is about the meaning and heaviness we attach to certain activities. And while this is unconscious, they feel much more scarier than they actually are. And the truth is that even using the word procrastination detracts us from the real experience as it conceals the truth underneath it all. So in the examples I gave you, I wasn't procrastinating, I was in fact afraid of rejection and ashamed of my body. So when we uncover the real reason for our resistance, we can finally address it. And procrastination is no longer this invisible master of puppets, making us feel ashamed and guilty for constantly wasting time and postponing things. But as I continued to explore the matter of procrastination, I realized that the connection with the Puer Aeternus and Puer Aeternus, aka the man-child or woman-child, was undeniable. And this took things to a whole new level. So the poor lives under the influence of the mother and father complex, and they're constantly looking for comfort, don't want to grow up and fully take responsibility for their lives. So I understood that the problem of procrastination isn't only about postponing daily tasks. In truth, it's about postponing becoming an adult and fully living life. Because while you maintain immature behaviors and a childish view of yourself, you can always blame the parents, your boss, partners, or society for your shortcomings. But all of this passivity leads to a generalized sense of feeling lost, having no purpose, a lack of motivation, and being completely aimless. So that's why simply trying that new list of habits yet again won't cut it. We must address the root cause first. So here are a few common patterns I found underneath procrastination during my practice as a therapist. So first, some people procrastinate because they fear becoming independent, truly growing up and making their own decisions. Again, classic Puer Aeternus. Others will procrastinate because they don't feel good enough. They have low self-esteem and therefore they have to overcome imposter syndrome. While others procrastinate to avoid confronting their families or partners about the path they want to pursue. So this is pretty common. Let's say you want to take a job or you want to study something specific, but everyone around you is against that. So people will feel afraid and paralyzed because of this judgment. The next one is that some people procrastinate because they don't have the right motivation. They're just trying to please everybody else. Again, a very common reason. So a lot of people don't have this intrinsic and this internal motivation. They never developed that. So instead, they constantly look for validation outside, but part of them resents having to do that. Like unconsciously, they resent the people they're trying to please, and that's why they also, feel paralyzed because they don't want to make a decision for themselves, and they resent that they have to do that, to feel approved by, someone else. Let's see. The other one is that A few people will procrastinate because they're afraid they'll be rejected if they put themselves out there. Again, yeah, let's take the example of my book. So a lot of people postpone publishing a book, for instance, because they just don't want to deal with how other people will receive their creations. And finally, some people procrastinate because they're afraid of failure or even afraid of success. So to summarize everything, procrastination makes you constantly play it safe and keep yourself comfortable. But comfort is one of the most poisonous drugs that exists and reveals a direct relation between procrastination and constantly striving to recreate childhood as an adult. And that's why the Puer Aeternus and the Puer Aeternus constantly procrastinate. And that's why the first thing that has to be done to beat procrastination is precisely to individuate from the parents and start carving your own path. And I must say that this isn't only about getting a job, your own place, and simply being busy, as plenty of people indulge in busy procrastination. And in other words, they're constantly filling their calendars with mindless activities to avoid doing what they know they should be doing instead. So overcoming the Puer Aeternus is about stretching yourself and moving in the direction of your fears and devoting all of your time and energy to creating a meaningful life and authentic relationships. And all of this starts with daily choices. And to make things simple, I want you to envision the Puer Aeternus as the part of your mind that's constantly making excuses and looking for the easy way out. And I know it's a mindfuck, but you have to realize that you keep procrastinating because you have the perfect conditions. The problem is that you've gotten used to your current level of comfort, and this is what keeps you stuck. You know the mindset, if I just had the perfect conditions, I could start. This is what I'm talking about, because there's always one more book you have to read, there's always one more course you have to watch, one more thing you have to buy. You know, the list never ends. But the first thing you have to realize is that comfort is subjective, and you might not think that your current life is objectively comfortable, yet you have gotten used to it. So it's crazy, but as human beings, we have this great tendency to always choose staying in familiar situations, even when they are living hell, simply because it's predictable, instead of daring to go into the unknown and create better conditions. And that's why you must keep in your mind the true reason you are procrastinating and making a conscious decision and effort to give all you've got. So instead of using resistance as an excuse to never try, you must see it as a message that you're going in the right direction. And I know this is counterintuitive, but making changes is uncomfortable. Sometimes it feels completely wrong, but it's just because you got used to being comfortable in your misery. So the moment I realized I was avoiding writing, for instance, I decided to embrace the struggle and deploy all of the mechanisms of motivation to access the flow state more easily. And of course, we must learn how to push, but we also have to be smart about it to make it as effortless as possible. And I dissect everything about how to access the flow state in this video. And if you want to learn more about how to finally conquer the Puer Aeternus, you can watch this series of videos over here.